Hi, I'm Mark. Welcome back to Foothill Paint Fabrication. Well, today we're on Project Ruby Step 2 for the back seats. Now, we're still working on roughing stuff in. There's no final work being done today, but we do need to get all the mounts done. We're going to cut a lot of sheet metal out of the way just to get these backrests in for the seats. Now, you can see behind me, I still have the lowers in. We did that on the previous video. Took quite a bit of work to get those in where they're bolted and mounted in properly, and they're super comfortable, guys. I'm really happy about how the lowers worked out. Now we're working on the backrests, and the backrests, obviously they're from a 2006, and they're not going to just fall right into a 1967 car and it's going to be easy peasy. It's just not going to be that way to do it right. So we got some sheet metal to cut out of the way. There's some bracing in the way, some other stuff down there that we have to cut it all out of the way and start from scratch, basically right where it connects to the package tray. So that's what we're working on today. We got the backrest to modify because they're way too tall, and we've got a lot of sheet metal to cut out of the way before we can even figure out how we're going to mount these things. So let's jump right in there. We'll take a look what we got done already and what's in our way. Okay, as you guys saw in the last video, we got the lowers in. They're all connected, bolted down. I'm really thrilled with how comfortable they are and how well that worked out. The backrests are going to be a different story. So they're too tall, and the way the foam is designed, all this bracing right here is in the way. So that's our job to start off, is we got to cut all this bracing out of the way so we can get those seats mocked up in there before we can even decide how much we can chop off the top, how they're going to mount, how we're going to make this work. So let's jump in here and get this done first. I got to get all that sheet metal out of the way, and there's a lot of spot welds to cut and to clear that out. So let me remove all this foam and everything so it doesn't get burned up while me cutting, and then we'll get in there and figure out what we need to cut and how we're going to do it. Okay, this is going to be a little down and dirty, but let's just get it done. Ouch. Okay, we got those cut off there, and I did get a little too close with the plasma torch and I burned a hole right there, but there are some holes down here that I did not do with the torch. This formed a pocket, as you can see, and it turns out it was a watertight pocket, so when the filler panel was leaking all those years, the water accumulated down there as well, and it rusted. So it rusted all the way through. I did notice some holes on the other side. I didn't think they were that bad, but they are pretty bad. So we're going to have to fix that later. But for now, let's just get those seats back in, and we'll keep moving forward with getting the seat stuff worked on, and we'll come back and just fix some more rust holes in Ruby. All right, we're looking pretty good. I got the seat back in there where it belongs, but you can see the hooks right here. These are the factory hooks where it hooked on the 2006 GTO. We're gonna have to cut those off because they're holding us from leaning back where we belong. So let me cut those off real quick. I gotta pull that cage out of there so I don't burn the foam. Okay, cutting those hooks off did the trick, and it is sitting back really nice. I was just in it a moment ago, and it's a really nice angle, so it's super comfortable, so I'm really happy about that. Now we need to decide what to do about how tall it is. It's just obviously way too tall, and I just don't like the look. So let me spin around from the inside, and we'll talk about our options. Okay, in the last video we talked a little bit about how to make these seats look a little bit better. If I should just take that 5.5 inch swath out of like the upper middle there and just kind of lowered the whole upper part down, or if I should just kind of round off the top and get rid of that shoulder up there and just have the headrest sticking up. So doing a little bit of Photoshop work, really rough, I was able to kind of mock some stuff up and take a good look at it. So here you can see option 1, and that's the one taking the 5.5 inches out. And really, I don't like that. It's just too short and squat to me. I don't like the way it looks. But option 2 is the one where I actually carve the foam back and just have the headrest sticking up. So the back of the seat will basically be to the package tray there, and then the headrest will be the only thing sticking up. And really, when it comes time to do upholstery, I could just delete the headrest and just have the bucket. So that is an option 2 later, but as you can see here, I personally like option 2 better. It's just, I think the scale is better. It's narrow and tall, you know, like a bucket should be. The other one, it shows kind of short and squat, so I'm not a big fan of it. So I think I'm going with option 2, and so we're going to move forward with getting the frame cut and doing maybe just some really rough kind of foam work, leaving extra foam, because we'll trim it all when we start to do the upholstery and figure out all those shapes. But we do need to figure out how to get that wire frame attached to the car. So we do need to make some cuts to get started on that, so that wire frame can bolt or lock or pin to the car somehow. So that's what we need to do now. So we're going to go option 2, and we're going to move forward and get to work on that frame. We need to cut that across there just to kind of get it out of the way, so we can kind of see where we're going. So that means we need to get some of the steel frame out of the way. So as you can see, the steel frame goes all the way up in here. So I think what we'll do is we'll just chop it off right here, and then the package tray will land right about here when we're all done. And if we feel we need some structure or strength right here, I can just get some more 3/16. We'll make a nice shape right here and reinforce that. So, but we won't know that till we get the foam shaped just like we want. Then we can build the frame to match the foam, and then we should be good. Now, this piece in here is for the headrest, and like I mentioned earlier, we may get rid of the headrest, but I'm gonna kind of sneak up on this and not make any decision. Really, this piece can stay in there. It doesn't matter if the headrest is in or not, so we can just leave that in. Okay, I got a bread knife just to cut this foam. It cuts it pretty easily. Now, a carving knife, electric carving knife, you know, the old school ones, they work fantastic for cutting foam. So if you got one of those, I don't. So we're gonna use a bread knife. So we're just gonna slice this off. Like I said earlier, we're just kind of roughing this out just to get it, you know, a chunk out of the way. There is a wire right here, so I gotta kind of work around that, get a pair of cutters and cut that. That gets us pretty roughed out, so let me put the frame back in it, and we'll put it back in the car, and we're going to take another look at it and see what we need to do. All right, as you can see, that steel frame right where we cut off is just right below the top of the package tray, so I think that's going to work out okay. We're not going to have to cut any more of the frame. We may put a piece across there to make it a little stiffer, but I think that's looking good. And obviously we're sticking up too tall, but the idea is, see this part right here? We're gonna cut straight across and curve and make basically that shape right there, just down lower. So we'll just carve that foam in a nice radius right there. So I think as far as that goes, I think we're looking really good. It's fitting in nicely. I like the scale, and this part right here is exactly the same height as the package tray. So I think it's gonna work out really good. So I'm happy with my choice with option 2, and the only thing really left to decide later is the headrest or not. So I'm kind of leaning towards no, but we'll see. We'll see. Now it's time to start figuring out what we need to do to mount this thing and get the support it needs in the back for that foam like we talked about before. We just can't leave that pooching out into the trunk. That foam, I think, was designed to be up against a piece of sheet metal to give you the proper support. So let me get all this stuff out of the way, and we're going to take a look at what we need to do next, and I'm going to have to go buy some sheet metal, and we're going to have to make a piece for back there. Okay, my thoughts were do just like the late model GTO and have like a solid piece of sheet metal all the way through here with that curve in it for that the cushion on the back, the foam on the back of that seat there. But I just kind of had a little bit of an epiphany. Instead of doing all that and trying to get that curve just right so the cushion sits up against there and has the right amount of pressure on it, I think what I want to do is actually put that curved piece on the frame of the seat itself, and then all we have to do is like clean the sheet metal up right here, you know, make a nice clean cut across here. That's still structural, and then we would do something in the middle over here to re-strengthen this whole area and, you know, the side to side. So let's move right back over to the seat cushion real quick, and I'll show you my idea, and I'm really liking it the more I think about it. Okay, so my idea is, since this frame is so rigid, why don't I just make a piece of sheet metal that follows the contour right here and just have it come over and then weld on right here or right here, doesn't really matter. I would imagine right here would be better. And then, so it'd be, you know, whatever that is, 12, 13 inches wide. So we'll just bend a piece of sheet metal along here to match this, come down, and then we just kind of tack it on here, weld it on here. And since the frame comes away from the foam this way, it'll all come with it. We could actually make it so it preloads that foam just a little bit, and then that would solve our problem. Then we're totally independent of the car, and then all we have to do is make sure whatever bracing and stuff we put in there, it clears this area right here, and then we should be fine. So I'm really liking that idea. I think that's a good choice. And then the bracing on the car will be, once we get these done, then we can figure out how to work around this part that sticks out into the trunk a little bit. Okay, came up with a piece of steel, and if it looks familiar, it's because it's Ruby's old filler panel. I saw it laying there and I thought, well, you know what? Why don't we just recycle that? And it's just big enough. So I just had some 24 grit on the big sander and just went over it, took about 20 minutes and ran a DA over it, wiped it with some phosphoric acid, and it's just big enough for what we need, so it's gonna work out great. So I've got a little dashed line here. It's 11 by 11 right here, and then it goes down to 7, and it's about 10 inches long. I'm gonna make it a little bit long because by the time I make all the bends, we may run out of material, so I want a little extra, and we'll trim it once we're done. All right, got the piece made. It's looking pretty good. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to take this angle right here. There's a little crest right here. So we'll measure that distance. It'll ultimately be just welded on right here. We'll break it over on the welding bench. I'll just clamp it down and push on it until it matches this shape right here. There's not really a curve here. It kind of comes up and goes to another flat area. Then we'll come to this area right here, and then we'll bend it again down, and then we'll figure out where to do a 90 to come down to this piece down here. So it should be pretty straightforward. Let me get some marks on this thing, and we'll move over to the welding bench, welding table, and we'll get this bent up. All right, we just got it clamped up on the edge of the bench. I'm not too worried about it getting a little curve in it here, so I'm just going to use my hands and bend it down. Okay, we got the gauge on it, so I can kind of eyeball it off the table here. Needs to go a little bit more. That looks pretty good. Let's go test it. All right, it's coming together pretty quickly here. See how this fits. All right, that's looking really good right there. We still need to trim this leg right here so we can weld it right onto this frame piece right here. So let me get a mark on there. I got to figure out about how much farther down it needs to go. Okay, we got that trimmed up. Fitting real nice. Got that bent back out so it reaches this one now, and I think we're looking really good. We're ready to weld it, really. I mean, we just have to get the foam out of the way. But I do think I want to put a hole where each one of these pockets is to let air out when you sit down, so it's not more like sitting on a balloon. It just it lets the air in, and it'll also let it breathe a little bit through the fabric. So I think I want to go ahead and do that, and then maybe just a couple of hole saw holes. Clean them up real good, and that'll be just about ready to weld in. So we're going to go ahead and use a knockout tool to make these holes bigger. Drill a 3/4 inch hole, and then so that the
the bolt will fit through. So the knockout, this is my dad's, and it's just, all you need is a 3/4 inch hole, and then you have different dies to knock it out to a bigger size. Normally used for electrical boxes, but in this case, we can use it for this. Just like that, nice clean hole. It's a lot better than a hole saw, because you know how they wander a little bit, then the hole's kind of all boogered up on the edge, so it works out pretty good. I'm going to knock this last one out. We'll clean these holes up a little bit, and then we'll get this welded on. All right, let's get this thing welded up. All right, it's all tacked up. I'm gonna put some 1/4 inch welds on it. Doesn't have to be super strong, just a few 1/4 inch welds here and there, and that should be about it. All right, let's test it out. Okay, it's cooled down cool enough to test it out here. Let's get it right back down inside. All right, fits right back down in there like it's supposed to. We got a nice tight connection here, so when you sit down, it's gonna be nice and firm, which is gonna be great. So let me go ahead and bust one more of these out. I'll get the other seat done, and then we'll be just about ready to start figuring out how to install these on the car so they're semi-easy to remove. So let me take care of that and some other stuff, and I'll bring you right back. Okay, I got both seats ready to go, and while I was doing a bunch of other work, I went ahead and put a patch in right here. You guys remember that sheet metal we left behind that was spot welded on there? I went ahead and cut that off on both sides, and then kind of tested that out, and it was just so flimsy from all the rust. I went ahead and sectioned that out, put a patch in right here. So that is good to go. The other side, I just needed to weld in some holes where I got carried away with the plasma cutter. So both sides are about even, ready to go to start figuring out how to get these seats mounted in here. Now, originally, you know, in a 2006, I never saw how that worked. So we're going to have to kind of wing it here a little bit. Now, I do know that they had hooks up here on the top, and then it hooked, and then it bolted or clipped or something down at the bottom. So we're going to do something similar. Now, I don't know if you guys can tell, but right here, there's an indentation, and there used to be a plate across here with a hole drilled in it with a threaded hole. Now, I got carried away when I was prepping Ruby's floorboard for these seats, and I cut that out thinking, there's no way I'm ever going to need that. That's in the way. Well, guess what? It's in the perfect spot for what we need to bolt that seat back down. So now I had to remake the piece. So I've got it right here. All I did was take a piece of galvanized, I think that's 14 gauge, welded a nut on the back, and we are gonna basically weld it right back where the other one was. So I kind of screwed myself on that. I threw the old ones away, so I can't even reuse them. But this is gonna work out good. And they put a nice little dent right there so the nut can sit there and the bolt can go in. Okay, I tacked those mounts down with the welded nut on it, and so they're in place, they're just tacked in. And then I cut all the extra stuff that was going across. I just sheared it all off on this line right here. So we have plenty of room for that, the bottom cushion piece to slide in, lock into its little groove there. Then I went ahead and used that recycled piece we took off that were the formerly hooks. I don't know if you guys can see, but it's bolted to that plate, and then it kind of splits the difference right there. The shadow's in the way. So all we have to do is really weld it on there at the proper height. But before we can do that, I need to come up with some sort of hook over here. I've got some sheet metal. I need to head over to Dave's. He's got a small brake, and I think we can break something over pretty quick and then kind of tack it up there or clamp it up there and then kind of see how this whole thing's going to work before we start welding things on permanent. But it looks like a pretty simple solution, and it should work. So let me get that stuff broke over, and we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so I got the pieces made up over at Dave's on his little mini brake. So the way it's going to work is, let's say this is the package tray, the vertical part, and this is the top of the seat, that rail that goes across there. It's just going to go down just like that and latch in, and with the angle that'll help pull it tight, we'll be able to spot weld that onto that package tray, and on the bottom we'll be able to weld on that hole down. So let's jump back into the car. I figured out a few things while you guys were away, and we are just about ready to get this thing fixed in there permanently. Okay, so I've got it pretty much, I think, exactly where I want it. I've got it centered, and what I worked on while you guys were gone was the angle here. So I was trying to figure out what the angle of the original seat was, and I realized, you know, that it was not very comfortable, so let's make it comfortable. So the angle over on the sides here where these back pieces meet where the window will be is about 62 degrees. I've got this at 64. I got it laid back a little bit, so I jumped in and out a bunch of times and sat in it, and it feels pretty comfortable at that slope right there, that incline on the back. So I'm pretty happy with that. I got a piece of 3/4 inch wood back there holding that in that position. The height-wise, it's sitting down onto the lower seat really nicely. So once that's all upholstered, there won't be a gap or anything. So I think that's going to look really nice. All in all, I think it's starting to come together really well. So I think we're just about ready to weld this thing in and just go for it. Okay, let's get this thing spot welded. Damn, this thing is heavy. I'll put a few more in there, one on the ends and maybe in the middle here, but that's on there good. It's as good as the sheet metal behind it, so that's good. I got to spot weld a few broken pieces over here. Let me take care of that. We'll get that seat back in, and we'll get it welded on the bottom. Okay, I hope that's in the right spot, because I just put 7 spot welds on it. Slide it down just like that. Make sure it's lined up with my marks. All right, now we're going to put this piece of 3/4 inch wood back here to get our spacing off, get our angle right. All I got to do is get this welded up right here. All right. Pretty stable. Let me get this board out, see how she looks. Yeah, feels pretty stable. I'm going to pull it out, get it welded, and we'll get the foam back on, and then we'll test it out. Okay, let's put it in, give it a test here. Right now, lining it up is a little tough since they're not hooked together. I'm going to kind of have to look at my mark. Drops in, put the bolt in. Okay, now the bottoms. Just like that. Looks great. Let me bust out the passenger side real quick, and then we'll get to work on trying to connect these things together. Okay, we got both seat backs exactly where I want them. I'm liking where they're at, because once I weld them together, there's not going to be any more adjustment. So, because they bolt down here and they clip on the back, so any little adjustment needs to be done right now. I went ahead and bent up a piece of 1/4 inch right there. It just kind of comes over, and I just bent these down at a little bit of an angle. So they're going basically perpendicular to that back wall there. And we'll go ahead and get that welded on. Like I said earlier, we're just going to tack a piece across there, just a scrap. And then I've got a piece of 1/4 inch here. So I've got those lined up pretty good. I'm going to tack it on the ends, and then line up the 2 ends, or kind of want to walk back and forth a little bit and get those tacks. So, and then we pull it out and get it all welded together. Okay, moment of truth. Oh, boy, these things got heavy. Wireframe was a lot easier to throw around. That went pretty easy. All right, we already know these fit, right? They fit with the backs. Line them up. Okay, guys, got them all in, and the bolts went in really easy. I just had to jiggle the bottom a little bit and got the bottom bolts in. Everything's tightened up and ready to be tested. So I like the way it looks. Of course, the top pieces are going to be gone when we're done after we do the upholstery, but we're just roughing it in right now. There's still work to be done, that's for sure. But it's looking really good. Really happy the way everything's lining up. You see right here, you see the seams are all lining up just like they're supposed to. And hopefully, I haven't tested them yet, I've been waiting for you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and jump in that thing and see how it feels. So let me put the camera down, we'll test drive this thing. Okay, let's try this out, see what it's gonna be like riding in the back seat of Ruby. Wow, that feels pretty good, guys. I'm really liking this angle I selected for this, so I'm really happy that's gonna work out nice and comfortable. Lumbar support, and the rim here really solid, nothing jiggling around or rattling, so that's perfect. I even threw this piece in here, just kind of get an idea. Obviously it's way too narrow, but I think we might be able to just split this in half, glue some styrofoam, and then recarve it and make a pattern up and do something just like this. And the console will come all the way back here, so that's going to be really cool as well. And you guys have to use your imagination here, like I said, to kind of figure out how that's going to look with that missing. So, but really happy the way it came out. Doing this rough-in work and getting all this stuff done before I can spray any DTM anywhere. It's been a little challenging, but I'm trying to think far enough ahead to save myself a lot of work. If I would have sprayed all this, then I'd be grinding all that off just to spot weld and everything. And that's not what I want to do. I want to keep my foot on the gas, and I want to get as much of this done as I can, which is in bare steel. And this is working out great. I'm really loving just working on this car that's so clean. But well, I'm really happy to get this done. I think our next step will be reinforcing that package tray. You know, we cut those bracing out and everything, so I think that's going to be our very next step before we can move forward with figuring out where the battery is going to go in the trunk. So thanks for joining me here at Foothill Paint Fabrication. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Mash that bell and drop me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. We'll see you on the next one.